This is a video lesson for Module 5, Lesson 22. The Lesson 22 learning target is I can add fractions less than 1 to whole numbers and subtract fractions less than 1 from whole numbers. So we're going to be looking at problems today where we have whole numbers greater than 1 and we're adding fractions to them and subtracting fractions from them. I'm going to be showing two strategies today, actually three, one using a tape diagram as a visual model, one using a number bond, and one using a line plot or a number line as a visual model. So let's go ahead and jump into the first problem. So the first problem here, I'm going to be showing an addition problem. If I'm being honest, addition is a little bit easier when we're adding a whole number like 2 to a fraction less than 1 like 1/2. But I'm going to show visually how this addition works. So first I'm going to create the whole number 2 with a tape diagram. So what I've done is I've created two equal parts. Each one is equal to one whole. So this is one whole and this is one whole. And then I'm going to add on 1/2. So I'm going to find approximately 1/2 of the whole. Looks like this. And then what I've done is I've added 1/2. So I have one whole, and 1/2. And so all together I have 2 and 1/2, or 2 plus 1/2, and that simply is written as 2 and 1/2. So as you can see, addition of whole numbers to fractions less than 1 is pretty simple because all we're doing is combining the two wholes like we have right here with our two wholes, and then we're adding the half portion, which I have in red. So we're just combining the whole number and the fraction. So you can see addition with these types of problems is pretty straightforward, actually kind of simple and easy, but we can represent it with a tape diagram. When we get to subtraction is where things get a little bit trickier, and so we're going to look at a subtraction problem using a similar strategy or using a tape diagram. So in this case I have a whole number of 3 and I'm going to be subtracting 1/4 from 3 wholes. I'm going to start by creating a tape diagram that represents 3 wholes. So my tape diagram here is going to be split into 3 equal parts, and each part is going to equal 1 whole. So this is 1 whole, this is 1 whole, and this is 1 whole. So altogether these 3 parts equal 3 wholes, which is what our minuend is. And so to use a tape diagram to show this subtraction, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to partition the final portion of this tape diagram into 4 equal parts. So I'm going to be splitting the last whole into fourths. So now I have each of these 4 areas right here split up into fourths. So each of the little red areas is 1/4. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to cross off or get rid of or subtract one of those fourths. And I find my answer by seeing what's left. So I have 1 whole right here, 1 whole right here, and then each of these is 1/4. So I see that I have 1 plus 1 whole is 2, and then 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 is 3/4. So I get my answer of 3 minus 1/4 equals 2 and 3/4. I can also do this problem with a number bond. And if I were to do this with a number bond, I would start with my whole number. And just like I partitioned that last whole right here into fourths, I could show a number bond where I have 2 wholes and the last fourth, or the last whole being partitioned into 4/4. So just like I did right here where I had the 4/4 for that last one. So these two wholes right here are equal to this whole and this whole. And then these 4/4 are equal to the 4/4 in red right here. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to subtract 1/4 from 4/4. So if I do that, 4/4 minus 1/4, so I'm just subtracting right here. 4/4 minus 1/4 is 3/4. And then I have this 2 that nothing gets subtracted from. So I get the answer of 2 and 3/4. So this process of splitting up that final whole into fourths and then subtracting or taking away one of those fourths we can show with a tape diagram or with a number bond like we did right here. The final strategy we have for subtracting fractions from whole numbers is using a number line. And so I'm going to be showing how to subtract 5 minus 1/4 using a number line. And so to get started, I'm actually going to start with a number bond. And I'm going to be taking a look at 5, which is my minuend, the first part of my subtraction problem. And I am going to, just like I did in the previous problem, I'm going to take the last whole. So I have 4 wholes. And then I'm going to take that last whole and I'm going to partition it into fourths. So I'm going to be able to look at 5 wholes as the addition of 4 and 4/4. So 4 plus 4/4 is the same as 5 wholes. And so what this tells me is that my answer to the subtraction problem, since 1/4 is less than 1 whole, my answer is going to be somewhere between 4 and 5. And so what this allows me to do is it allows me to just create a number line that's between 5 and 4. And since I'm subtracting 1/4, I'm going to partition this number line into fourths. Okay, so now I have 4 and 1/4 right here, 4 and 2/4, 4 and 3/4, and 5 wholes, which is the same as 4 and 4/4. So I'm going to be starting at 5, since that's what the minuend is in our subtraction problem, and I am going to make a jump backwards of 1/4. When I do that, I land right here because I subtracted 1/4, and I get my answer of 4 and 3/4. So taking a look at another problem here, using the number line, I could also show how we could subtract something like, let's do 7 minus 3/5. So I'll clear some more space down here. So in looking at this answer, if I were to use a number bond to split up that final whole, I would have 6 wholes and 5/5. So I know my answer is going to be somewhere between 6 and 7. So on my number line, I would start with 6 and have 7. And since I'm working with fifths, I would partition my number line into 5 equal parts. And in this case, I'm subtracting 3/5. So I would start at 7, since that's what my minuend is, and I'm going to jump back 3/5. 1, 2, 3, and I end up at this point right here. And so this is 6 and 1/5 at this point, so I get an answer of 6 and 2/5. So 7 minus 3/5 equals 6 and 2/5. I could also use this number bond strategy by viewing the number bond and viewing 7 just like this as 6 plus 5/5, and then subtracting 5/5 minus 3/5. So in my head I'm thinking, hey, what is 5/5 minus 3/5? And I know 5/5 minus 3/5 equals 2/5. And then I'm just going to add my whole number back on. So I get 6 and 2/5 as my answer. So there you have it. There's 3 different ways you can go about solving problems involving the addition of a whole number plus a fraction and the subtraction of a whole number minus a fraction. And so we looked at the 3 strategies of a number bond, a visual strategy of a number line, and of course tape diagrams. So you should be ready to answer any of the problems in the Lesson 22 problem set. But if you get stuck, you can always come back and rewatch parts of the video to refresh yourself. So good luck and thanks for watching.